Okay, and we're recording just to let everyone else know. Any questions or responses that you have will also be recorded. And yeah, let's dive right into this. So I guess a few things on why are we looking at Clarity? Why is Clarity of interest to us? We've done a lot of work on Notion so far. So I guess to lay the groundwork here, some of the benefits of Clarity are one, that they have a token gated invite link. So I'll go ahead and put this link into the DAO general chat right now. And if you have access to, if you have one of the ATX DAO NFTs, you can automatically get in here and start playing around. And they also have a DAO billing approach that they're cooking up right now that's going to charge us based on the number of active users as opposed to just the number of people that are in the base in general, which is beneficial to us since we have a ton of people that are just hanging out in Notion that add, $10 or whatever to our, what we're being charged every month. And so ideally, we only get charged for when people are adding to it and using it. Which is great for DAOs, especially when we want to grow and scale and all of that jazz. As we all know, we only have a certain number of active users, but it sure is great to give everyone access. So with that out of the way, it also has a couple of other benefits over Notion, namely their bounty system and their task tracking, which we can kind of configure Notion to do, but it isn't necessarily built for. So I'll start with kind of like a broad overview of the different sections and what you can do with this. So there's kind of a plus button at the top left here, and it allows you to add a wiki page, a task, a project, an initiative, or a view. And there's kind of these 4 fundamental types of documents in Clarity. So the easiest one is just notes. So underneath each group, you can add in a quick note. It has very similar to Notion kind of styling. I can tab for bullets. I can do a slash and start putting in like formatting or images, things like that. We can throw in videos and Figma and all that jazz. And then it also allows us to tag things. And so tagging things is where this starts to veer away from Notion a bit more. In the form of the wiki. So anytime that I'm creating something and I want to tag it, so let's say important clarity intro, note. If I wanted to tag this under the, say, education committee, then automatically, one, if the education committee didn't exist in the wiki, it'll show up here as a new topic, and two, the note that I just made is going to show up in the mentions here. So this is kind of like a nice way to be able to quickly scan through everything that's available in relation to a topic. So we might use this as the landing page for an education committee, and then add in, automatically everything else that's related. So the wiki, you might think of any kind of tagging that we want to do, it should be relatively minimal and only when there's not a tag that exists that would already cover this. So I've added tags for all of our different committees, and a couple of other potential things like weekly meetings where you could have notes that automatically accrue for every weekly meeting. So there's kind of this new breakdown that they've added, which is the groups. So everyone automatically gets added to this ATX DAO group. You can get this like nice landing page. But then each of the individual committees also is set aside as its own group that you can either like leave or join, and they show up over here. That means that you can start to separate notes from the different committees and keep the information from overflowing into areas where it's not necessary or needed. So outside of these kind of more like informational pieces, there's the tasks and like project system. So they have this like roadmap here where you can create initiatives and then be able to track everything that's going on. So this is kind of more high level, and then there's like a more like basic like to do breakdown here. And then they also have views that allow you to kind of filter. So I could filter for every single kind of task that is added to that is tagged with education committee, for example. So I guess let's try creating one of these. So if I jump into like the project ideas that we have for the education group, I can take one of these blocks and turn it into a project or an initiative. I'd say a hackathon's a really big kind of deal, so maybe that's an initiative for us. And then jump straight into that. We can assign, just for the sake of this, I'll assign myself. Obviously, hackathon's going to be like a many different kind of group initiative, but lots more contributors. So you can start to mark like, who else is involved. Maybe our due date is sometime in June. And then a priority that's going to like rank it on the, the task chart. And we can even start to add rewards along with like percentage splits. So right now, let's say we'll use like USDC, and let's say we've allocated, $10,000 for the, the work to be done here, and then we'll split it out, according to, however that's done. So 50, 10, 10, and something like this. And then we can save that, and it'll note it for later, and we can go back and edit it, and we'll add this note that it's an education project. So you can start to see some of the power of having everything connected in terms of being able to find things. And now this is also going to show up under the the roadmap. We have a hackathon here. Now, one interesting thing that we can do is add all these subtasks and then start to add more rewards to the subtasks. So let's go ahead and do that with maybe reworking membership onboarding. So maybe we need an introduction to ATX DAO for our next round of members. So we'll add like, a reward of say 10 USD for this. So now that there's been a reward, Ruan can go in, and I guess I can too as well because I'm an admin, and mark this as in progress or ready for review. And we can set a role for reviewers. So these are people that can go through and review the contributions and start to examine, who has actually finished the tasks and who is going to get a reward. On top of that, we can add custom tokens. So we can start to play with our own reputation token, for example, as one of the bases for rewards. And if we go to kind of work statuses, we can add some more here. I think there's maybe one that I need here that's like, ready for review. I think that I neglected to add that. And if we go through to the tasks, the work that needs to be done, now we can update this to ready for review. And if I'm a reviewer, then I can start to one, have a feed of things that are assigned to me, and create like a view of everything that's been assigned to me to review. And then two, I can go into the task, and I think, sorry. Let's see here. Write-up introduction. We should be able to mark this as done. Somewhere in here, there's the actual contribution. Oh, we've moved it to payouts on the work screen. Okay, payouts. Oh, here, payouts. Got it. Sorry. They just moved this like last week because there was an update. So we can start to see that things are like in progress, and then be able to move them to to done. And then if we go back to the payouts, we can see that there's one that's awaiting reward approval now. And we can approve this for rewards. And then once we've approved it, it'll pop into the approved for payment, and we can mark everything that's in here as paid or export it as a CSV to be able to keep track of all of that. So it's a way for us to kind of do our bookkeeping. All right, there's a couple other topics that I want to touch on, but I'm going to pause there and open for questions. Anyone have questions? Yeah, so it runs through all of the different kind of tasks that are available and gives you a variety of filters to work with. Not going to dig too deep into that because there's a lot of complexity that you can do with the views. But if we find ones that we like, we can also go in and we can pin them. So I can pin this to the sidebar, for example, and it'll show up down here for everyone. Or if it's just something that we want for personal use, you can like favorite them here, and that it's just one way to kind of like customize it and to make the experience of Clarity a little bit different for everyone depending on what they're really focused on, even though you can still access everything. That's a great question. So I think we can here, so we can update to allow anyone with the link to comment and to be able to see it. And in terms of being able to like access this on the fly, I know when I first started talking with folks about this, there was some concern about being able to access it on your phone since it's token gated. But you can actually add your own like username, your email, and a password. And once you have an email and a password to be able to log into Clarity, you can log in from your phone. And then anything that you've gone through on the computer and gotten access to through a token gating, you'll still have access to. Obviously, there are like phone wallets that would work for doing it, but it tends to get more complicated. I know most people use desktop. It's a phone browser, I think. I'm just showing here the ready for payment and payment sent pieces. They're under the reward instead of being under status. Just there you Yeah, so you might have missed this because I don't think everyone was here when we first introduced Any. Any's one of the co-founders for Clarity, and he's joining us to answer questions and yeah, just see any of the feedback. I will say, I think one thing that you kind of got to keep track of is when you're adding additional tasks. So let's say like this membership onboarding, you got to make sure that you're tagging all the children so that it shows up in the same tags. Um, it'd be nice to be able to tag the parent and have that cascade in some way. Um, I think so. I mean, potentially there's a way to mark something as cascading to children, right? Or maybe by default to have it cascade and then to be able to turn that off. Any other thoughts or comments from folks? Oh, this one. Sure. So here. So so there's lots of ways for us to kind of like build compilations of these. I don't think that I think if we want to see like what the total cost add up, that might be something that we could do with the Excel doc. I mean, that's a good piece of feedback, though. It would be really nice to know like what is the total like reward for a project if a bunch of tasks in a project like have costs. Yeah, exactly. If we could add like a budget to a project. I think that would be useful. Yeah, just as a way for us to see kind of like bucketing of budget. I don't think there's any ways to add additional like fields. So the fields are kind of set in here. Although I will say that like there are like additional plugins. Annie, do you know if there's ways that we can like extend the platform for our own uses with a plugin? Oh, sure. So like in here, so if we can surface a new field like in the list that's shown. Yeah, I think the one kind of major thing that we don't have in Clarity compared to Notion is like kind of a database tool within like a note or within a wiki, right? Um, so you can't create like tables. So things like the membership directory are better suited for Notion, at least right now. Um, it's also just tracking information about the people that are in the base, right? So being obviously like there is a base kind of directory here, like we have a list of all the members, right? And their roles. But we are also keeping like other metadata about people, about like what their position is and like um, what their background is, all that jazz. Yep. Ideally, living inside of a document. I mean, potentially as an application, a part of it that you could manage on its own. But I think if like the only way I could see to do it is to basically create like a note for every person or something like that, right? And then you could make a view that compiles all of them. Um, which it's a way to do it. Like we could do that in membership, but obviously like being able to copy and paste from a CSV and get like a full table makes it a lot easier. It's a lot less manual work. Right, and not every need that we have is going to be solved by this platform. I think um, it's the fact that it has a task project management system is ideally like what we're using it for here, especially the bounty system. And then we could just use like the roadmap as a top-down view of everything, right? Yeah, I mean the possibility of using Polygon for this is definitely appealing. I mean, um, any other questions from folks here? As Mm-hmm. Uh, yeah, sure. So there is still a sandbox that's floating around. I think if you go under the operations committee, it is very recent. I'll go ahead and reply it. So there's a link to the invite, and you can pop in there, start adding stuff. It's under the operations committee. Yeah, the operations committee channel on Discord. I'm glad to throw a link into the general channel as well. And this sandbox is just going to make everyone that joins it on admin, and you don't need to, it's not token gated. So yeah, that's a great way to explore all the features that are available. Obviously, not everyone that joins this is going to be an admin, since we're going to try and lock down the different capabilities and hopefully use it as the bounty board. Which, speaking of which, if you haven't taken a look at the bounty and reputation proposal, I'm going to drop a link to that as well in the general. Please go take a look at it, provide some feedback. We're going to have another iteration out soon. And now that you have some context, you'll understand, how are we actually going to allow people to start picking these up, ideally through Clarity. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I think we can open this up a little bit more to even outside the DAO, right? Obviously, we'd like to have folks be able to pick up tasks and build reputation so that they can use that to enter the DAO. Um, I would see our progression here being first that we do an internal bounty board with some USD rewards. So ideally, it allows our committees to start using their budget, since we have those $500 budgets for each committee, which of course can be expanded with proposals. So for the education committee, at least, we'd like to launch some bounties to write up articles on different tooling, different technology, crypto networks that are out there. And then after we launch internally and test it out for a bit, launch reputation tokens on the Polygon chain, and open an external bounty board that has both USD and reputation bounties. And then in our next round of membership minting, not this kind of special round where we're finishing the Zilker mints, but in our next full round, we would allow folks to exchange rep for access and membership. Yeah, definitely. I'd say, hold some kind of kickoff meeting, and then just spin up a project, in the roadmap, and get everyone else that's involved on Clarity. Keep track of, what's happening in the project details, and yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get a budget for it, then obviously reach out to the committee head, or put out a proposal for it. I think right now our intent is that only committee heads are assigning like rewards to the tasks, but the bounty proposal isn't done yet. So if you have another idea on how to do that, please give some input. Yeah. I'm I'm demonstrating this in the stream right now. You can see it here. Okay, this will be posted on our YouTube channel after this, so if you want to go back and check for reference, there'll be a copy of it there. I mean, I think that goes a little bit further into like bounty board discussion. I mean, personally, I disagree with the idea that we wouldn't want people to transfer them. I think that's up to the people that are holding them. I don't think that we're creating a liquidity pool for these, right? We're not trying to, encourage speculation or people to just go and buy these. But don't think it's the end of the world for folks to transfer them, because that's really up to them. Sure. Well, it's also, I mean, there's a way to just like to vouch for someone though. I mean, I'm glad to do a follow-up session of like the bounty board and like how we should set that up and all that jazz. Which we could flow into right now. I'm just going to stop the recording for clarity, since I don't think this necessarily relates to how to use the platform. Okay, well, thanks for coming, y'all. Really appreciate everyone showing up, and I hope this was useful. Like I said, you can access this right now and start playing with it. The links are in the general channel.